In every organization, risk is constant, but control is a choice. What separates resilient enterprise from reactive ones is not the absence of risk, but the discipline of a structured risk process. Risk management isn't a department, it's a cycle of awareness, action, and assurance that connects the front line to the boardroom. The risk process is the heartbeat of governance. It ensures that risks are not just known, but measured, prioritized, managed, and communicated. Let's walk through the six pillars, the foundation of every effective enterprise risk program. In every organization, risk is constant, but control is a choice. What defines resilience is not the absence of risk, but the discipline of a structured risk process. It begins with risk identification, which is knowing what could impact the organization's objectives. Then, risk assessment, which is measuring the likelihood, the impact, and the velocity to turn uncertainty into insight. Risk prioritization follows, focusing leadership on what truly matters. Through risk treatment, we decide whether to mitigate or transfer or avoid or to accept the risk. Risk monitoring keeps exposure within appetite, while risk reporting ensures transparency from the front line to the board. Together, these steps create the heartbeat of governance, turning chaos into clarity and uncertainty into readiness. Because risk management isn't about predicting the future, it's about preparing for it, one disciplined process at a time. Welcome. This is part 8 of the taxonomy series for risk management. We would be looking at risk process in detail. Namaskar, this is your host Savit Vittal Salian. The agenda for this series has been as shown. We are now in the risk process stage. For this specific video or section, this is the agenda that we will go through. Risk identification. It's a systematic process of recognizing and describing risk that could affect the organization's objective. Example, identifying vendor outage risk during cloud migration. Risk identification is used for performing risk workshop with business unit. It could be used for threat intelligence for cyber risk identification. It could be used for capturing risk in a centralized risk register. Or it could be used for mapping risk to strategic goal for board level reporting. So risk identification ensures that the organization proactively recognizes potential threats and opportunities that could affect strategic objectives. Risk assessment. It's about evaluating risk in terms of likelihood, impact, and velocity, which is speed of onset. Example, assessing financial risk of interest rate increase. Example like likelihood medium, impact as high, etc. Risk assessment is used for conducting qualitative heat map assessments. It could be used for applying quantitative models. It could be used for aligning assessments with regulatory framework, or it's used for prioritizing top risk for management attention. Since risk assessment evaluates risk by likelihood, impact, and velocity, enabling the board to understand the severity and related prioritization. Risk prioritization. This is ranking the risk to determine which requires the most urgent attention or resources. Example, prioritizing cyber risk over market risk due to the rising ransomware threats. Risk prioritization could be used for building your top 10 risk dashboards for executives. It's used for allocating budget for high priority risk area. Can be used for supporting audits and assurance focus areas. Or it could drive scenario planning for critical risks. Hence, risk prioritization ranks the risk so leadership can focus on the most material threats to strategy, operations, and reputation. Risk treatment. This could be mitigation, transferring, avoiding, or accepting the risk. By definition, it's about selecting and implementing strategies to address the risk. Example, transferring credit risk through insurance or mitigating cyber risk via firewalls. Risk treatment could be used for developing risk response plan. It could be used to decide on risk financing via insurance, or it could be used to implement control frameworks, or it could be used for formalizing risk acceptance at board or CRO level. So, risk treatment defines how risk will be managed. Whether it should be accepted, it could be mitigated, it should be transferred, or it could be avoided at the first place. Thus, aligning actions with your risk appetite. Risk monitoring. It's about continuously tracking of risk, controls, and emerging threats to ensure they remain within the appetite or the tolerance of the organization. Example, monitoring patch management, compliance as a KRI. Risk monitoring helps to deploy real time dashboards and alerts. It helps to monitor regulatory and compliance KRI. It could be used for reassessing risk exposure after major incidents. Or it could be used to detect control failure early on with key control indicators. Risk monitoring provides continuous oversight of risk exposure and control effectiveness, thus ensuring risk remains within appetite and tolerance. Risk reporting. This is about communicating the risk information, its exposure and mitigation to stakeholders at all levels. Example, quarterly board report showing heat maps, KRI, top emerging risks, etc. So risk reporting provides a regulatory submissions. It helps to deliver board level strategic risk updates. Risk reporting helps to inform operational managers of process level risk. Risk reporting enables transparency with investors and rating agencies. So, reporting communicates risk information transparently to stakeholders, giving the board confidence in governance and regulatory compliance. If we summarize this, risk process is a continuous cycle ensuring risks are recognized, managed, and communicated transparently. So it begins with risk identification, the process of recognizing what could impact the objective of the organization. This is where we turn blind spots into foresight, capturing threats from technology, regulations, finance, and people before they materialize. Next comes risk assessment. Here we measure the likelihood, the impact, the velocity of those risks. This transforms intuitions into intelligence, quantifying uncertainty in a way that guides decisions. Then we move to risk prioritization because not every risk deserves equal attention. Prioritization focuses leadership on what truly matters. The high impact, high velocity risk that could alter strategic directions. Once prioritized, the organization chooses how to respond through risk treatment. That means deciding whether to mitigate or transfer or could be avoided or to accept the risk. This is where governance meets judgment, balancing opportunity with prudence. But identifying and treating risk isn't enough. We must keep a pulse on the system, and that's risk monitoring. Through dashboards, KRIs, and control reviews, we ensure risk exposure stays within the organization's appetite and detect changes before they escalate. Finally, risk reporting closes the loop. It's not about producing more data, it is providing insight, timely, relevant, and transparent communication from the business line to the board. It turns a process into accountability and accountability into trust. So, for the organization and its board, the risk process is more than compliance. It's the architecture of foresight. It ensures that when risks emerge, responses are coordinated, not chaotic. That leadership acts with clarity, not confusion. Because in the end, risk management is not about predicting the future, it's about preparing for it one disciplined process at a time. I hope this helps with a 360-degree view on the topic. We have now come to the end of this series on taxonomy. I'd like to thank you all for staying with me till now. We are also in the part of end of part 8. We will have few more taxonomy related videos but on a different vertical. Do subscribe so that you know when a new video is uploaded. Do like if you think this has added value to the table. Do share with your friends and colleagues who you think can benefit from this. The whole idea is to share, learn, and grow together. Thanking you. This is your host Savit Vittal Salian. Namaskar.